Hi everyone, welcome to the Guest Expert module that I have here with Ben Gair. Hi Ben, how are you?
Hey, how you doing?
So Ben's a sexuality coach among a myriad of other things. He's had an amazing journey into sexuality and healing and coaching, counseling, all sorts of stuff that we could be forever here talking about this. So I'm not going to do a lot of the sharing on that because I'm going to get Ben to. But this module, we're really going to be going into talking about dearmouring and more so Yoni Mapping, which we have discussed in module 2. And I've got Ben to be the expert on that because he is certified, qualified in that area. And Ben, why don't you start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do?
So in terms of the qualifications and stuff, last year I did a certificate in sexological bodywork. So sexological bodywork is probably a field that's trying to crack more into the academic sort of side of sexuality. So they're trying to team up with sort of counsellors, therapists, medical industry. So there's a lot of understanding in anatomy and sort of basics of. They don't really talk about energetics. I come also from a background more in energetic work, so I have a blending of the two. So it means I can navigate language tailored to different kinds of audiences and crowds of who I want to talk with. So, so in terms of the sort of more academic side, I've done that certificate as well, but I've certainly learnt from several teachers, done a myriad of courses. I'm a breath worker as one of my first trainings, and that covers a lot of sort of embodiment, counselling, regression therapy, and sort of things of that sort of nature. I sort of wanted to balance that with a bit of body work later because I found that bringing people into their body and getting them to feel can sometimes allow those things to release. So I did a massage training, and I had been doing a lot of tantra work at this time in the background, more on a personal level, and certainly a lot of my clients in regression sessions had some stuff of sexual abuse come up, so I kind of wanted to be okay holding that space and sort of being able to be in integrity and understand the mentality that goes on there. So that's part of where the sexuality thing started, that I could hold that space and for my own personal journey. And so, I've just been sort of stacking up more and more sort of trainings on emotional release, embodiment, and sexuality is probably the main things I've been focusing on for a little while.
Yeah, awesome. So it sounds like you've really been doing this for quite a long time. It's been like a huge journey for you. Yeah.
Been about 15 years, I think, in the making.
Yeah.
So it doesn't
awesome.
stop.
No, it never ends, right?
No.
Yeah, a lot of women on this program, are really, this is the beginning of their journey, or it's the next level of their journey. So it's a wonderful space to be in. And as you say, it's just the beginning of a sexual awakening, as I sometimes call it.
Yeah, and we all have to start somewhere. So it's about bringing consciousness to what you're doing. I think ultimately is what all of this is about. It's just like bringing that awareness rather than doing things unconsciously. It's bringing conscious awareness to sexuality, to anything, but in this case, sexuality. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. So the reason why I asked Ben to do this is because I met Ben, it was probably about maybe a year and a half ago now it would have been. It was at the International School of Temple Arts, level 1, which is an amazing shamanic sexual experience. And then Ben went on to do all the levels. I haven't got to that yet, but it sounds like it's amazing, and now assisting on the program as well, which is awesome. So, so the reason that I asked Ben was because he is actually the person who did my first Yoni Mapping session, and I'd done a dearmouring session previously, and I choose to men that I know that I can trust. So I think it's really important, and we'll talk about this soon, to obviously pick a someone that you trust, and particularly if it is if you're a woman and it's a man. And the reason why I chose Ben is A, because I knew I could trust him, and B, because I knew it would trigger more purely just because he's a man. It would trigger more stuff and would bring more stuff for me to heal. So it was a really beautiful experience. I have posted about it before, and it is on my website. But I got so much healing out of that of course I asked Ben to come along and do this. Awesome. So yeah. And always only ever recommend people, or obviously get people that I consider to be absolute experts in what they do. And so what I did want to ask you though was really understanding what is dearmoring, and particularly dearmoring of the vagina. So if you could tell us about that, it'd be great.
Yeah. Dearmoring is, I suppose it's been a term that's been coined by a few different organisations. A few people call their particular practice a dearmoring process. I mean, the definition is kind of like, as we grow up, as life happens to us, regardless of whether there's any kind of abuse or tampering or things, we close down a little bit. I mean, we're so open as children that if we were like that all the time, we'd kind of struggle sometimes, really. And so the concept is that as you grow up, you start to put on armor, plates of armor is the kind of concept. And so we're not actually functioning as freely uninhibited human beings. All our conditioning is probably another way of saying armor, is as we sort of layer thought processes or emotional processes on top of things, we create barriers between us feeling fully and being in our body and having full range of sensation. So that concept of dearmoring, that's sort of where it begins. To the process of dearmoring itself would be something to do with sort of holding meridian points. So meridian points would be energetic centers in your body. So we all have, so as we have veins and bloods and arteries, we have energetic systems as well. So on a unmeasurable, sort of scientific level, although science has apparently just mapped its first meridian system, we're able to, there's points on the entire body, both externally and internally, where you can hold them and they will release the armor. So that's kind of the concept behind dearmoring.
Cool.
Does that answer?
So yeah, absolutely. And with the vagina, how does that work? So dearmoring of the vagina, is it just a similar concept?
Yeah, again, there's all kinds of acupressure points, all kinds of pelvic floor points in the vagina itself. And so, like anything, if you had a sore shoulder, you go get a massage, so like we just do that kind of work. Like that's more the concept of where I sort of look at things, that if you've got numbness or pain or lack of sensation, you would just go to something like these areas where you would want to release things. And as we can imagine, like the vagina would be a massive holding area just for life, let alone sexuality. So sexuality is the basis behind all of life, really. It's life force energy. So yeah, I think it's a pretty amazing process to go through, or at least to witness going through. Not that I can go through it.
Yeah, you have your own.
Not vaginal dearmoring, anyway.
No vaginal, yeah. And on them, well, let's talk about the men's briefly, because the dearmoring I did, we did armoring the anus. So yep. That's generally the men's, and I haven't done penis dearmoring, but I have heard of it. Is that sort of the men's stuff that they can do? Because a lot of women will have partners and things like that. And I thought, might as well ask you. Well, yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of the armor, as much as there's both internal, there's external. I mean, there's heaps in the hips joints and things like that. I mean, I did a full dearmoring process, like whole body, and nothing was internal. And there was like, I think by the end, 65 different points that we held. So yeah, that was just external. Certainly guys definitely have a lot of sort of tension around the anus. So that's always going to have some kind of conditioning or conditioned response of what they think it means, or it's going to bring up a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, the anus is probably one of the highest nerve endings in the whole human body. So it's directly related to the nervous system. So there's all kinds of dearmoring that can be done through there. There's also penis. I've had penis dearmoring as well. So yeah, it's about increasing sensation. That's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, awesome. So what about mapping? How does Yoni mapping work exactly?
Mapping is definitely a term that's coming from the sexological bodywork field. And on that level, generally we come from two places. So one, it would be pleasure mapping. So you would actually about bringing focal intent to what you're doing. So if you're going to be touching a vagina and you're trying to find pleasure spots, because we're generally conditioned to know that, well, I can have an orgasm that way, or a pleasure will, if I go there, I'm going to get pleasure. So it's about rewiring the brain and changing the neural patterns to be more expanded. Because again, if we've only been going for the same old way for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, maybe more, we're going to build up a habitual pattern that, well, I'm going to get a release this way. And so something like pleasure mapping would be taking it outside of what your normal patterns would be and allow you to have a space to explore different areas, as opposed to a mapping. Another kind of mapping would be more for any kind of numbness or pain would be another one. So again, it's holding focal intent on these spots and allowing them to release or to bring sensation back. And that could take several sessions. I mean, there could be due to medical procedures, due to sexual abuse, due to unconscious partners that have like not taken conscious care of being with a woman or something like that. Just could create areas where bits of your vagina would shut down and the sensation would become less. And as I say, it's quite common to have numb spots. There's just nothing happening. Pain in certain kind of areas. Anyone that has kind of issues with sort of endometriosis or things like that can be looked at. So we're looking for, on that kind of mapping, we're looking more for bringing sensation. So it's sort of a dearmoring on that kind of level, but it's more a focal presence point of, because the reason it's called mapping is because generally we do a clock rotation. So you would go starting at 12 o'clock and going all the way around and mapping the entire vagina to find whether it was pain mapping or pleasure mapping. So you would be wanting to figure out what's happening where. So again, if you're wanting to increase pleasure, it's like, oh, this area is really sensitive and that's really nice. Let's keep working with that and bring it up. Whereas the pain mapping would probably be like, oh, that doesn't feel great. Let's stay with that and let that release. And that could take several sessions.
Yeah, awesome. So I know we did a pain mapping. So it would be quite a good idea to actually do a pleasure mapping as well. Like, would that be something you recommend? Like, maybe you could get a few pain mapping sessions or something like that. Or obviously it depends on the person.
Yeah, it would be dependent on your sort of probably orgasmic potential already. If you were quite sensitive and you knew your body really well and were fairly comfortable, then pleasure might be where you'd want to go. Or likewise, on the opposite, if you're wanting to wake things up, you might have a few pain mappings to waken the area, and then a pleasure to feel into what's really going on, and what you thought was maybe your go-to areas, now expanding that into other areas which you hadn't explored before. So it's really sort of can go either way.
Yeah, so I think what I think is quite common is obviously the numbness is from myself and people that you know, a lot of women that are in this program or who I've met, and I almost feel like this is like, for me, you know, this is my belief system, is this is kind of like almost like a necessity to be able to actually reach their orgasmic potential. Is that something that you could, you know, feel as well? Or, you know, I just don't think I can. Yeah,
I totally agree. And look, I mean, even for those that think they have a great orgasmic potential already, how much better can it get?
Yeah.
You know, like, so, I mean, it's really, it's not limited to anything. It's really awesome for any kind of physical issues or anything like that. But who doesn't want more pleasure at the end of the day? So
totally.
yeah, I mean, so it's really open to. I mean, we can all go deeper. We can all have more if we choose to. So yeah.
Yeah, and obviously there's some things that we can do on our own. What would you suggest on that? Like, until, you know, because maybe not everyone can see a practitioner or they can't do it right now. What would you suggest that they could do to help with that?
Yeah, probably slightly different, but pleasure mapping yourself. Like, if it's maybe you can't get the full range, maybe you can't like reach all the different places on your own, whatever. But certainly expanding your erogenous zone understanding would probably be the best idea, I would say. And again, avoiding your go-tos. It's like, yeah, we know them. That's okay. Like, I'm definitely of the belief that anything and everything is fine if it brings you pleasure and it's doing no harm to anyone else. It's your body. You have full ownership of that. But I do also see the necessity, or I think it's better if you know, again, this is back to science and neural patternings, that if you've got hardwired pattern of this does this and only go there, you're probably limiting your actual potential. So if you stay away from that for a period of time so you can bring it into balance, is more where I come from. I kind of do believe in balance in anything and everything. And so I like to have periods where I'm like, okay with this, and then I'll stay away from that. And then once I understand both sides, then I can play in between. It makes sense?
Oh, totally. And I, you know, I suggested to the woman to, you know, maybe take out control orgasm for a few weeks, but then it's okay to bring it back in. And oh, actually, I just put a post to say, let's do this for 21 days. Let's commit to it, and then after that, you know, it will sort of help us to be out of the habit of that. Because now I'm not totally, you know, strict on it. Like, it's like, and it's not like a no-go completely. Sometimes I do allow it, but it's not like that habit where it's, you know,
100%. And usually that's my recommendation too. It's like the pendulum swing. You go from I'm always over here to go over here to come, but ultimately you want to get to center. And that's the balance of having the option to do both. And even with men's ejaculation, that's a lot of what I sort of come from on that level. It's like, there's times to and there's times not to, and it's about the learning and the learning of your body, because again, once you expand your range, then you're going to have more pleasure and more potential, and who doesn't want that?
Yeah, totally. So if they were to do the pleasure mapping on themselves, how often would you suggest that they do that?
Again, to start start a good pattern, like they say, there's the statement like do anything for 21 days and you'll form a new habit. I think that's pretty much true. And again, that does come down to the neural patterning. So if your synapses are firing in certain kind of ways, by disrupting that and creating difference, you're expanding those channels. So I would definitely kind of say if you would, and again, there's no hard and fast rules. If you don't have the time, if you don't have the inclination, it's no one's going to, there's no one going to say anything to you like you haven't been masturbating like properly today. So I mean, it's all down to your own discipline and what you choose to want in your life. But I would say that, and again, because a lot of us come from habitual patterns, we only masturbate, or we only play with ourselves when we're tired or when we're horny or when we're, and this is about expanding your range on every level. And this is for life, So I would say that it's best to create a new pattern by doing something ritually every day, at least in the initial period. For awesome, 21 days is good, but I've said giving people homework for a week, because if that's not their normal and if that's not where they're used to, that's even enough. It's about breaking patterns, and it's like, well, if you want to create a deepening of this experience, then you've got to start somewhere, and to at least set yourself a goal that every day I'm going to spend 10, 15, 20 minutes, an hour, whatever suits you. That's still doable within your range. Don't extend yourself over because otherwise you're not going to do it, So if it's totally new to you and not your general experience, I would say make it doable, and then give yourself a 7-day challenge, 14-day challenge, 21-day challenge, whatever you're actually going to commit to and do.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. So what are some of the benefits that you can see from people that have experienced a de-armoring or a mapping? I know I've sort of touched on it quite a bit, but is there anything else that you'd like to share on that?
Yeah, again, it's I mean, obviously pleasure is the biggie. I mean, it's a bit of a no-brainer, that one. That, again, our potential is far greater than we probably even realize. And because I do a lot of emotional release work, I generally tend to come from the angle of, once you free up anything, whether it's the body, the mind, the emotions, everything starts to flow, whether it's sexual energy, whether it's creative energy, whether it's, your ability to think clearly, to conceptualize new ideas, to kind of go for the things you want in life. As we sort of expand our range and we deepen on that sort of level, then, and clear out some of this clutter and some of these like negative thought patterns or habits or limitations that we've either put on ourselves or society's put on us or family have put on us or blah, blah, blah. So I just think that any kind of way that you choose to clear baggage that doesn't serve you anymore is just going to give you the potential to have more thirst for life, more thirst for pleasure, more thirst for whatever it is that you want. And if it's greater, deeper, more connected sexual pleasure, who doesn't want that?
Yeah, awesome.
They're all related to me. In my experience, that even if you liberate emotion, sexual pleasure can come with it. If you liberate sexuality, emotions can come with it. And again, they're usually patterns that we've been holding in our body for usually a very long time. And that's sort of a lot of the work that I do as well. It's by liberating the emotions, we just naturally step into more sexuality. Or liberating the sexuality, we step naturally into more emotional release and freedom, and we're less inhibited by programs that don't serve us.
Awesome. I love that explanation. So cool. So, give me give us an idea of because I already know how a session would tend to go. You know, if someone came to you and said, "Hi, I want to, you know, have a Yoni mapping," or "I've had experienced, you know, some sexual abuse." Obviously, there might be 2 different sessions or a few sessions. How would that go? How would that work?
Yeah, look, I mean, it really is about tailoring it to the experience. Certainly, well, just going to a practitioner could be a really edgy process for someone. You know, we're not here to break people. we want to nurture them into opening, because there's no point forcing something that's so outside your realm of comfort that it's almost traumatic. So it's really down to what the client would be comfortable with. And again, especially if it's sort of sexual abuse stuff, that could take a while. If this work is new to someone, it could take a while before you even got on a table and got naked, and that could be just a session on its own. If someone was more comfortable and more open to it, I generally do massage stuff first, because I want people to feel safe and to really come into their body and know that there's no rushing ahead and there's no destination as such. The entire fact that you've committed to a process and that you're actually choosing to consciously step into looking at the things that are difficult for you is actually more than enough. And so that situation needs to be respected. And so, yeah, lots of grounding, lots of getting into the body, and then the sessions can go as slow or as quick as they need to. We can get straight into mapping if someone was super open and it was easy, but that's not usually my experience. That even if someone's comfortable, just massage first and getting people okay with someone else touching them, coming from the place of, yeah, nowhere to go. You know, there's no destination here. I'm not doing it for my pleasure. I'm here to provide an experience for you, and people open in different ways. So that's part of my responsibility as a practitioner, to read that situation and go, okay, like we can go here and we can go there, but there is no sort of, there's no set plan in terms of that, but it can look multiple ways.
Yeah, absolutely. So after we did my session on the table, we then sat down and we did what's called spiral. Can you explain what spiral is and how this ties in with the session? Because I think it's quite unique to you. It's something that you've brought, you know, your kind of modalities that you've learned together, which is super cool, by the way. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's because I have a background in so many different things. I am playing with what I'm going to give most bang for my buck. You know, like I want my clients to walk out of there going transformed and go, what the fuck, that was awesome. Yeah, I also do emotional clearing and muscle testing using kinesiology in a process called Spiral. So it's probably more related to mental and emotional processes, as well as sort of holding points in the body. So again, I'm able to isolate emotions through muscle testing and kinesiology to find where blocks are. So, and that can be like mental thought processes, statements that we kind of think. It's just like, I'm okay to be sexual. I mean, that could be one. And it's just like, if you had emotional charge with that statement, which I would be able to test up, just say shame was attached to that, then how can you be really open and free in your sexuality if you've got a story that's been running for your entire life? You've maybe able to overridden it but it's still not free within your body. So yeah, in terms of how I'm starting to work and what I'm playing with now, because I really love the emotional release component, it deepens that process for me, that I feel it gives more value to the session. It's just like we can isolate an emotion and then release them through the body, or vice versa. The body is released and then the emotions can come up, and then we can use tools to get rid of them as well. And change, there's again back to changing brain patterns and how you're hardwired or have been hardwired. And so we're trying to isolate these kinds of glitches in the system where we're not feeling 100% free, and that can be in emotions, it can be in statements, it can be in all kinds of sort of things like that. So that's how I'm starting to integrate Spiral now, and I'm seeing some pretty cool results, and I'm really enjoying the amalgamation of me creating my style and again adding value to what I really am passionate about.
Awesome, so cool. So I just wanted to briefly touch on sexual abuse, because I know it's something, I think it was maybe the second time we caught up after the first time we met, and I really loved that you were so passionate about helping people, particularly around sexual abuse, and it had kept coming up for you, and with people around you, like, and you felt a real drawn to that, and that was obviously a while ago now. So I'd love to know, maybe how you would suggest that someone who has experienced sexual abuse, what are the steps they could take to start healing that?
Baby steps. Baby steps. And that's sort of the thing too, that like I originally came to looking into sexual abuse because it was so unconscious in so many people. And that kind of really shook me, that it was like, wow, we're actually so high functioning as human beings that people could block, like completely blank block any kind of concept that had ever happened to them. And I'd done regression sessions where you could literally see the dawning of that concept come into a woman, that they've actually taken back to a situation where they've known it's happened, and it's been completely absent from their entire life, but it's shaped their behavior, because ultimately these things will. So that was really, really where it sort of came from. And I mean, officially the statistics are something like 4 in 10 are reported sexual abuse, but they think it's closer to about 7 out of 10, and that was statistics from a few years ago. So, and that was just in women. It's quite prevalent, and more prevalent, and we kind of give it any kind of awareness to. And again, it's something that has to be nurtured through. This is not a breaking open. It's like, oh, I have to find my sexual abuse and I have to get rid of it. It can be done. In terms of it can be gotten rid of, like the story or the habitual patterns that caused it to occur. But it's just a gentle process of like, in your own time, in your own way. And if you have a dedicated intention that this is something you want to let go of and release, so you can have more fullness and not be limited by some story that happened to you X amount of years ago. It can be done. I mean, there's definitely tools out there. Like I say, the emotional release work, any kind of dearmoring. There's usually a lot of dearmoring that goes on there. That's sometimes some of the causes of numbness or pains, because it's just muscles holding on. Like I said, if you had a back problem, you'd go get a massage or a chiropractic or something like that, because that's people who know exactly what they're talking about, and they're going to go, oh yeah, okay, let's just adjust this back into place and you're fine. Well, you're on the way to being fine. So again, with a willingness to go there, and it's a journey, it is a journey. And it's one that you have to choose to want to take, because being forced to go down that road if you're not ready is going to be more traumatic than it is healing. So if and when it's ready, when it's time, it's possible to let it go, and just be super gentle and be curious. Like, come in with a mind of curiosity of us, like, I'm gonna be witness to what comes up, because again, you don't just let it go. You don't just do a de-armoring session and then that's kind of it. Then you're dealing with the emotional fallout that caused you to hold on in the first place. So there has to be that allowance for its soothing process back into the body and letting it go, and integrating back into your system so that it doesn't hold you back anymore. That's probably what the best I can say with that it's a gentle process, but what's going to make it occur and happen and let go and release is your willingness to go there, and only do it in your own time.
Great. Awesome. Yeah, we are. I've got another lady coming on, Veronica Monet, who's also going to be talking about sexual abuse. So that's really great to really touch on that, and to know that this sort of work really helps with that. So do you find that when people may discover it, is it through, can they discover it through de-armoring or mapping, or is it usually some sort of regression or something that just comes back to them somehow? How do they?
100% can be from anything. Again, if there's, life is weird. Anything can trigger. If your intention is to become a whole healthy human being on all levels, you can be walking down the street and you're going to get it. You know what I mean? Like it's just life. Was it the saying that best way to make God laugh is to make plans? Because sometimes these things can come from anywhere. Yes, 100% they can come from a de-armoring. Yes, 100% they can come from regression. But usually it's only because those people were actually willing and ready to go there. Like on an unconscious level. They don't even have to be thinking about it, consciously thinking about it. They're ready, and when they're ready, it's gonna come. And it could be in sex, it could be in complete pleasure. I've had sessions of being with partners, and in the pure height of ecstatic bliss and orgasm, and popping into complete grief and horror of sexual abuse. And it's because it's sort of the pleasure in that moment has blown away the cobwebs of the shit, and allowed it to come forward. And it was in a nurturing way that it was held, and I was able to be with that person in that moment. And so therefore there was the space given for it to come out. And so there's if you know it's there, yes, you can go then get de-armoring, you can go get regressions, you can go get emotional release tools done that will help you dissolve the story. But if it's unconscious or you're not ready, it's just not going to be coming to your awareness, in my opinion. I think we know a lot more than we think we know, and we're quite holistic beings in that there's always going to be some self-care program running in the back of your mind that's like, I ain't ready to go here right now. And you're going to be kind of self-protective in some kind of way, that you're going to get what you can deal with at the right time. And so how it's triggered or where it starts is almost irrelevant on some level. But yeah, if you're striving for being a better version of you and it's there, it's going to come when it's going to come.
Cool. That makes a lot of sense. And I really like how you've explained that. So when someone wants to choose to go have a session and choose a practitioner, A couple of the questions I've had have been around how they know whether to choose a man or a woman, and how would you choose? How do you know who's best to go to, who's safe to go to? Because obviously, feeling safe is super important.
It's probably the most important to me, in terms of, because it's such a taboo area, and like it's such a charge for most people in life, that you need to be the most discerning you're ever going to be in this kind of realm, because it's deeply personal, it's deeply vulnerable. And so it's I would definitely be feeling into who you like, and drop their story of what they're trying to pitch or sell you on some level. Like, yes, they may be experts in their field and blah, 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 but if it's not sitting with you, then I wouldn't even go there. I would trust gut a little bit more on this kind of issue with picking practitioners and stuff like that. Or again, if you're going to go with someone who's got super good credentials, know that, like, keep your boundaries to what you feel you're open to. And in terms of men or women, it's really whatever you're comfortable with. Like you said, you came to me because it was more of an edge, but I know you've done a lot of this before. So it's okay for you to push that envelope a little bit, because you're going to get a little bit more. But to someone, and look, I mean, again, every single individual is different. Some women are going to be completely more comfortable going to another woman, or more comfortable going to another man than they are, either way. So more than anything, my recommendation is go by your feel, how you feel someone is, whether if anything, if it's a phone call or you're chatting about what kind of session you want with them, sort of interview them on the backside, and kind of get a check into where they're coming from, what you like, what you don't like about them, and listen to that higher part of yourself that kind of knows, and trust that you're going to be in the right place. But yeah, I think that's probably the best way to sort of pick who's your best fit, and different people will be different fits for different people. Different practitioners will be different fits for different people. So it's really, it's about feeling into what's right for you.
Cool. Yeah, totally. I feel that. I mean, I guess that's with everything, is really feeling into that. And
again, on like academic fields, I want to go to an expert in his field. Like on something like
true.
Astrophysics, I don't want to go to like an astrophysicist. But in terms of, like, because this is emotions, and because this is quite deep, unconscious and processing and stuff like that, you want to have someone that can hold you in that space and be safe, and that you feel is solid and got this and got no agendas and not coming from anywhere else other than your highest potential.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree there, and super important. So in terms of that, obviously you do sessions. So if someone does want to have a session with you, or wants to just reach out and have a chat further with you about this, and do the whole feeling into if you feel like a fit for them, I suppose you're sort of based near Byron at the moment, but you move around a little bit, don't you?
Yeah, a fair bit. I'm sort of doing a little bit of Melbourne, Sydney, bases in Byron, but I'm kind of traveling, and I'm open to traveling at the moment. It's kind of, things are opening up and my world's expanding, and travel is a passion of mine as well. In terms of sort of emotional release stuff, there's certainly things and patterns that I can help alleviate through the kinesiology via Skype. I'm open to any kind of coaching in terms of intimacy or sexuality general conversations, I'm always open to that. And as I say, there's a few emotional release tools that I've got there that are totally translatable via Skype. And yeah, one-on-ones, if I'm in a place where you are and you want to get in contact with me, I'm always open to, sessions.
Awesome. Well, I can recommend, ladies. So, I felt super safe. And actually, I'm probably going to organise some more sessions while you're here at some point, because I feel like this is definitely going to be ongoing for a little bit. And like you say, who wouldn't want more pleasure? So, so how can people get in touch with you? What's the best way?
Probably Facebook or phone, I'd say, is probably the best at the moment. I've definitely got websites and details in the pipeline, but I don't have anything solid yet. So probably Ben Gair on Facebook. I'm pretty easy there's not many of us and I'm easy to spot. And I don't know, do you want my phone number now, or do you want me to just give you that?
Yeah, you can just give me that, and we'll just put it in the in the group and the program. So it's Ben Gair, Bengair.
Yep. Air with a G, and just send me a friend request or a message or whatever, and we can go from there. We can organise Skype or whatever after that. I think Skype is Ben Gair 1 as well, if anyone's really after that kind of thing. Have an opening conversation. It's totally fine.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's probably the details for now.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything that you wanted to add that you think people need to know, or did we kind of cover most of it?
I think we're pretty good. I think that I'm pretty happy with how it went. Appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share. And this is something that I'm passionate about, and I really, on multiple levels, I want everyone to step up to more pleasure and more life and vitality and have a greater experience at whatever they do. And sex is one of those beautiful things that we can all have a little bit more of. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just wanted to say, Ben, you have such a big heart and passion for what you do. One of the reasons that I chose, obviously because we've had a session, but there's a reason that I wanted to interview a man for this, is because I find it's very common that women don't surrender to pleasure because they don't trust men. And I wanted to create more space for women to meet men that are trustworthy and are doing this from a really genuine space, from a really caring space, from kindness, from heart, from passion. And you're just one of those men that I see is just so authentic in that space and really does come from that. So thank you for agreeing to do this, and for being that type of man and just is doing that for the love of wanting to help people. So awesome.
Yeah, appreciate that. That's beautiful.
Awesome. Well, I bet I'll turn the recording off and we'll say goodbye to everyone. And we might see you again soon on here. Right. Or I'll see you in person for sure.
Yeah, for sure.